Yo, welcome back, it's Black Star. Today we'll be talking about Shinra versus Jin Woo. With the ending of Fire Force and the broader anime audience having witnessed a full scale of Shinra's abilities, I thought it would be cool to put him up against another extremely overpowered character, being Jin Woo. To begin with, I'll mention this video will contain spoilers from the Solo Leveling Ragnarok series and the manhwa if you're an anime only. If you want my opinion on who wins, I personally have Jin Woo winning by a large margin. Alright, now let's get into the video. To start with, we'll go into Shinra's scaling. Shinra becomes the hope against despair in the final episodes of the last season of Fire Force, and ends up acquiring the form known as Shinra Bansho Man. Within this form, he's free to turn whatever he imagines into reality. We see him smack away concepts such as death, despair, and so on, turning them into whatever he wants. We see him go back in time to stop beams of light that are stated to destroy all creatures, small and big, and anything it touches is doomed to oblivion. Shinra even creates a deity that can control all things, who's known as Death, who we see in Soul Eater. Before I talk more about Death, we need to understand the Fire Force and Soul Eater world and how it works in relation to Shinra and Death's abilities and powers. The way Okubo wrote his series is that imagination is a driving factor. Perception is extremely important. That's why we see abilities from characters like Arthur and Shinra skyrocket when they reach the peak of their imagination and fully understand what they want to be. In Arthur's case, we see him reach that peak when he fights Dragon. That's when he really encompasses what it means to be a knight, and that's all based off his imagination. Nothing to do with training, nothing to do with putting the long hours in and learning spells and whatnot. No, it's all perception. He deluded himself into really believing that he was a knight, and that delusion gets realized in a physical manifestation, which enables him to end up beating Dragon in the way he did. And the same goes for Shinra. That's why we see in the earlier parts of Fire Force where people see him as the devil, and that perception he was having was causing those physical characteristics to actually manifest. That's why we see in season 3, we see him really become what they thought he was, where he was like, he dyes his hair blonde and he gets piercings and he gets a tattoo and stuff like that. And this is all due to the perception that other people had of him, and those perceptions manifest in a physical way, and Shinra ends up taking on that form. And we see that a lot in Soul Eater with characters like Death and Black Star, and even villains such as Noah. These delusions or thoughts or imagination, it manifests into the real world. In the case of Black Star, you see him be able to float after his battle with the deities in outer space, where the statement is, the day Black Star is able to defeat the Kishin alone is not far off. Everything else he's boasted about has come true. Which basically just says, it's like everything Black Star thinks he can do, he can do. Everything he said he can do, he ends up doing. And that's exactly what happens. These thoughts manifest into the real world. And that's who Death basically is. That's who Shinra ends up creating. This deity who's capable of doing whatever he puts his mind to. Whether that be negate concept, create concepts, destroy the universe as they know it, he's capable of doing all these different things. Death himself even has an ability called Madness, which is his own alternate universe where anyone in it essentially becomes a slave. They're forced to do whatever he wills. And this is not to say that he isn't capable of doing that in, the other universe or whatever. He's well capable of doing that, but he lets them have freedom in that universe. That's why characters like Noah say they want to be in his position, because it basically works where the owner or the person who runs the world, their president takes, they take president. In Death, he lets them roam free and have freedom. He's not a dictator, but in his alternate universe, which he has, he is that dictator. They bend to his will. That's why characters like Noah and Medusa want that position, because they'll be able to enact their will, and their imagination will have precedence over anyone else. That's why a character like Black Star is inferior to Death, even though Black Star's imagination enables him to do whatever he wants. While there have been statements, and some people may say, oh, Black Star is the strongest, based off of what Okubo has said and what we have seen, it just isn't the case. Therefore, my logic is consistent, and the narrative of the story would just, continue being consistent. But let's say Black Star did take Death's position, Black Star's imagination would take precedent over anyone else's within, that universe, obviously. Shinra, who created Death, who's able to, control and rule over all these beings and characters and whatnot. This just goes to show how strong Shinra really is. But the problem with Shinra scaling is that we don't see him above, this 3D level. It seems like he's constricted to this, 3D level, this 3D dimension, right? We see these multiversal feats and levels of strength, but that's only in relation to the 3D dimension. Shinra's speed would obviously be immeasurable speed, as he's shown freely being able to go back in time. The first time we see it is when he's fighting Sho, his little brother. And we see it again when he goes back in time with Inca to see the old civilization. And also again when he's fighting the evangelist. This just goes to show how fast Shinra really is. Now that we've gone over pretty much all of Shinra's strength and, speed and whatnot, he really is kind of a bagless character. He's really just a martial artist that just shoots fire out his feet. Only within Shinra Bansho Man form, where he's able to just make whatever he imagines real and turn anything that tries to hit him or harm him into whatever he imagines. He's pretty bagless. He doesn't really have any other abilities, which is kind of sad. Outside of that, yeah, he's just a martial artist, bro. That's it. Now let's talk about Jin Woo. Jin Woo, by the end of Soul Leveling, really doesn't show us how strong he really is. He's kind of like a statement merchant a little bit with no real feats, because his whole fight with the last monarch just kind of gets off screen, where it's just he's just gone for 16 years or something like that. It just gets off screen, and then he just comes back and everybody's just scared of him and shit. But we don't really get to see what he's fully capable of and what he did within that period. But in Ragnarok, which is the spin-off, basically kind of like Boruto is for Naruto, and his son is the main character, this is where we learn how truly strong he really is. In Ragnarok, Jin Woo is in the outer verse fighting against these deities and beings called the Interons. And this is the race of the absolute being who used to reside over and, run the solo leveling universe or whatever. And basically these beings were these deities that created everything. Sun, moon, stars, concepts, space-times, different dimensions and whatnot. They created all this, right? The different space-times and whatnot. And the absolute being that ran the solo leveling universe ends up getting killed by his creation, obviously, we know that. But this is where we learn that there's a race of them, right? And once the absolute being died in the news, the other interims or whatever figured out that he was dead, they decided, oh, we want to come and take over, the solo leveling universe. We want that. That looks like something fun, something we can play with, right? And Jin Woo is basically just out there just fighting these niggas, bro. And they have armies of millions and billions of soldiers just spewing out the ass. And he's just over here just fighting with his shadow army at the ends of space and shit. And Suho is basically in the back lines, and Jin Woo's trying to prep him up and get him stronger. Trying to give that boy an amp so he come help him or whatever. Which in my opinion, he really didn't need, but whatever. And one of these fights, we see Biro fight one of the intros. And it's just described that Biro rips his eye out, and out of his eye just starts pouring this blood that's just capable to erase everything, turn everything into nothingness. It erases abstract concepts, multiverses, universes, all of that. And this is just the blood. While they're fighting, it's described that they're just screaming and ripping the multiverse apart, basically, just casually. And Suho is just back there trying to protect Earth, basically. And everything else around him is just crumbling to dust, just being disintegrated. The interns just have these abilities to just, whatever they say just goes, like Inumaki on crack, basically. And with these abilities, they'll just scream die. And essentially you have to die unless you're just a higher dimension than these beings or whatever, or you just out-hacks them, which Sanjuro basically does. He has the commander's authority or something like that, in which he quite literally just out-hacks his and he just resides on a different plane than these beings. They just can't fuck with him. It's basically said when they're he's in a 1v3, Jinru, he's in a 1v3, and they're just throwing these concepts, sound, light, universes, multiverses at him, everything they can, and nothing's touching him. And he has this aura around him that just engulfs and just sucks up everything, and it just negates everything. It's bad. And he just has hacks abilities out the ass. He's just able to get anywhere he wants. He's able to do whatever he wants. He's able to enact his will on everything. And it's to the point where it's kind of funny. It's Jin Woo ends up becoming the absolute being. He resides over the universe, and he's the one basically protecting the universe from these beings. But he's gone to the point where he's no longer the human, and he's the absolute being. And it's crazy to think about, because it goes to show how the author wrote the story. Is this normal, ordinary person goes from E rank to this being that still has his emotions, right? Because absolute beings, they lost their emotions. They don't have any emotions. They just do it for pleasure. Versus Jin Woo actually has these emotions. He cares about the people on planet Earth. He cares about his son. He cares about, his wife. And he's doing this to protect his home. Whereas these absolute beings, they're just doing it for fun. They're doing it for enjoyment. And that's quite literally why they're fighting Jin Woo in the first place. They enjoy, they're masochists. They enjoy getting killed and getting cut and getting their eye put out, like in the instance where Bureau's fighting one of them. He could have instantly healed his eye if he wanted to. They're capable of doing that. That's not a problem. But they enjoy that. It's a fun, it's a thrill, it's a new emotion that they don't usually experience. That's why they're letting it happen. And this is why we see Jin Woo just, being capable of, 1v3ing these different interrupts opposite. In the case of the ones that Jin Woo was fighting, they actually did want to like take over Earth and conquer Earth and kill or something. That's what they actually wanted. They had more pleasure in that than being harmed. But with the different interims, they obviously have different desires or whatever. And in the case of the one that fought Bureau, he was like masochist, just like the absolute being, and he was just enjoying that shit. The weirdos of him. Jin Woo obviously can have the immeasurable speed. He is a boundless being because he's not constricted by anything, and he exists above all of that. The way I really see it going, I think it's pretty one-sided for Shinra. Shinra is a pretty backless character, like I said earlier, and I think Jin Woo just says melt your brain and Shinra just melts his brain kind of thing. Like the only way Shinra would have a chance of beating Jin Woo is like if Jin Woo was slower. Like if Jin Woo was infinite speed and Shinra was like immeasurable speed, and he would just say was go to the future every single time and like negate every single one of like Jin Woo's attacks before it even happened, then I think it would probably be a bit closer. But due to them being the same speed and Jin Woo being massively stronger than him and having more hacks than him, I really don't see anything Shinra can do. Like obviously any concept wouldn't work on Shinra, because you just negate city councils where he just turns it into whatever he wants because he can just react to it. But something like Monarch's authority where like Jin Woo is able to just control whatever he wants or just crush Shinra, basically he can just do that. Like what is Shinra gonna do at that point? Or if he just pulls Shinra and then just like rips out his soul or something like that, or just consumes his soul. Like we've seen the interims just do that, just bite off somebody's head and suck the soul out of them. Pause. Jin Woo is capable of doing that. He's capable of making one of his shadow soldiers do that. He's capable of just ripping out his soul. He's capable of just disintegrating him, existence erase or anything. Jin Woo can do all these different things. That's why I really don't see Shinra being able to really compete with Jin Woo when it comes to like these hacks. Even if I granted Shinra to be the same strength as Jin Woo, which there's a possibility that there's arguments there. I could probably make an argument for that, but I feel like it would be a little disingenuous because we just don't see that from him. Plus, he is restricted to the 3D realm as far as we've seen. We haven't really seen anything, him break out of that, be above that in any type of way. That's another argument too. Like, could Shinra even interact with a character that's on a higher dimensional plane than him? Possibly, maybe. Like, I don't think so. Like, there might be an argument there, but like, because Shinra is such a character with lacking so many hacks and being pretty backless, other than just his martial arts being pretty overpowered, I really don't see him winning in any type of way. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap up this video. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening all the way to this point. Please drop a like, please subscribe, please join the server down below if you disagree, or if you agree. We're just chilling there, we're being VC, talking, chatting it up. I am doing a PC giveaway at 1,000 subscribers and at 1,000 members in the Discord. And thank you. Peace out. Bye.